welcome everybody to Learning with Belvista Studios. This is an opportunity where we interview people across the globe and be curious and get to learn from peers to get insights and be better as a team, and then share that same knowledge with you. And I've got Raiza today, and you've got some things that we're going to chat about. And we've been connected virtually for a while, so I've picked up some of your interests and the passions and the tips that you've been sharing to your communities on your different platforms. And one thing that I've noticed is a passion you have for mentoring others. And so I wanted to start there. When you are mentoring, what do you think, like, what's the most thing that people commonly struggle with?
What people have been struggling with, on my side, because my background is more e-learning and online learning, basically, most of their struggles have been with the technical side of development, especially if they want it to be a bit more advanced and more interactive. And then they've also been struggling with visual design principles, as far as I've seen. So what I do with that is I also give them like tips on like reverse engineering things, or like how, like my process basically of creating something, not necessarily from scratch. You can always copy something, right? You can always look at something and see how they did it and try to apply it in their thing. So that is mainly, I guess, their struggle. That, and like, trying to get ideas, trying to get things differently presented than a PowerPoint presentation where you show it to someone, okay, this goes. But with self-learning, the student is, they're in control of what they click, and then getting creative on what they click is their main struggle. Yeah.
Have you got examples on what people can do to be creative for what they click on?
What I actually learned that from your videos, as well as Kath Ellis's videos with the whole Learning Jam people. How they get inspiration from different websites, not just e-learning projects, right? They get inspiration from ad agencies, from creative games or websites, and see how do they present things, like how do they present the instructions in games, or how do they click menu or course menu, not course menu, food menu on a website. So things like that is what people are also used to seeing, but they're not used to seeing it in e-learning. And that's what basically they, I guess, create, and how they apply that and elsewhere.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't really thought about the menu one, but like I can see so much opportunity for that as well. Yeah, that's cool. What do you ever give people, like, you should try, when you say reverse engineer, do you ever give them challenges? Because I imagine a lot of people want to create portfolios and stuff. So what kind of challenges do you encourage people to do for that?
I guess look at their favorite app. Then I say try to recreate that as the e-learning project or a sample interaction, and then do it in Rise, or do it in Articulate, not Storyline, or even Captivate, and then see the different items which you love in a website. So when I created, I also give the example of my portfolio. So when I created my portfolio, before I did so, I went through dozens of other e-learning portfolios, of other art portfolios, and see what I loved about each thing, and I tried to apply it in mine. So those are the different challenges which I say. So research and then apply, basically.
Yeah, nice. That's cool. Do you have what are your favorite go-to resources for like your design inspiration? Are there particular websites you find yourself going back to?
More like people who I love following. So
tell us.
I guess most of the names are already out there. So of course, Kath Ellis is just amazing with theirs. Your videos are Belvista Studios videos on like Rise examples are amazing. Amanda, I think also from Australia, Nguyen.
Yeah.
I hope I pronounce her last name right. And then aside from that, it's more of following local artists and seeing just their style in things. And then I guess the normal other websites like Pinterest, trying to dribble, trying to get inspiration anywhere and everywhere.
That's cool. And I know a lot of people, when they're starting out, they don't want to buy the license for storyline, and or they're like, what do you call it? The free trial expires.
Yeah.
What do you say to people like that are trying to get experience?
There are dozens of other tools which you can always use to practice creative design or even development. Even something as simple as PowerPoint, you can create something with hyperlinks, or just matching those buttons. That essentially is storyline.
Well said.
That and Google, anything free. So you have Evolve, right? I believe that was it. And then you have other free tools. Google Slides, the whole deck of Google things is also at your disposal. So you don't really necessarily need to have one tool in e-learning. E-learning is basically anything you can have your hands on. So what my lead used to say to me was, don't let the tool limit your ways of teaching or ways of presenting to your learners, because that's not what instructional design is. That's not what learning is. That's just a medium to help you reach those, but then that's not where it should end your journey.
Yeah, I love that. I'll have to like quote that and put it on a little card or something. With let's get into portfolios a bit deeper. So with your portfolio, has a potential client or recruiter asked to see your portfolio?
Yes, they have. Actually, my current company, what they loved about me was like my portfolio, and then they were able to see, even though it isn't complete, like I don't have descriptions for the different courses which I've done. It's
Yeah.
just that they were interested in my design process or development process. Since I had that available, that website available, they were able to pinpoint things which I was good at. Like they
Yeah.
were able to say that I was visually okay. My design principles were fine. They were able to see the ease of user journey, if you want to be a bit more technical. Um, so with that, they were able to identify that yes, I was good for the job, and on top of that, I know what I do.
Yeah.
They were able to see the recommendations or comments by other people. And then other clients, they have definitely, yeah, they've gone through my portfolio, and then they were able to see the different types of projects I've done, or different types of content I've created, not just, let's say, compliance training, but they were able to see like I've done some mental health training, I've done some other types of things, and then that's what got them excited to do my to work with me.
Yeah, that's cool. What
Um,
part of your recruitment process did they ask to see the portfolio? Was it when you were submitting, or was it in the interview?
so when it comes to an actual job process, first it was the interview with HR. So them already, they this is more of the recruitment side. So they were able to research more about the candidate. And when they researched about me, they were able to show the portfolio and then send that over to the managers. When it comes to the actual interview, it's not up to, I think it was by the second or third interview when I was already talking to the hiring director or the hiring manager, where we talked about it in person. I went through the portfolio with them. But even before that, I guess when there were a couple of clients who already wanted to see samples. So I sent them direct links to specific courses which are not in the portfolio yet because it wasn't done.
Yeah.
there. So they've done it that way, and then after that they either ask for a sample project. You sometimes, not always. I
Yeah.
don't like that part when they ask you to do something in a quick short of amount of time, but then clients do ask that. And then yeah, that's, I would say that, yeah, portfolios are un- really nice to have, where it can really elevate your level compared to your other candidates if possible, and then that really gives them a chance to know what you can do and not just say. And I believe actions, of course, does speak louder to managers.
Yeah. And what tool did you develop your portfolio in?
I initially started with Wix, where it was
Yep.
just a free word building site building tool rather. And
Yep.
then I moved on to WordPress when I wanted more features, when I wanted a bit more customized uh, experiences or customized looks and feels, where since it was free and there's lots of free add-ons, it's just a really steep learning curve.
Yeah.
And in terms of design with WordPress, because you can do anything similar with Articulate or Captivate, with a blank canvas, it takes me a lot more time to design because I can do tons of other things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
When you started your portfolio, did you have any projects you could put in there, or did you develop the first project to put in there specifically for your portfolio?
I already had projects to start with. So I've been e-learning developer for a while now. I even also included some college projects because I studied computer science with a minor or major in instructional systems tech. So I've
Oh,
really
wow.
studied this.
Yeah.
So I've really been a programmer or e-learning person since the beginning of my time.
Yeah.
And then I have, so yeah, so I had lots of tools, but of course I couldn't completely put it all there because of the whole restrictions, so I just put screenshots initially,
Mm.
until the point where I started joining some challenges. I started creating different things where I was able to include more interactive samples there.
Yeah. How do you decide which projects and what screenshots you put into your portfolio and which ones you don't?
um Initially I put everything I can just so that I can say that I've done something.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really picky with what I kept. But then eventually what I found out is um you try to put the samples for the clients you want to work with, or for the core for the jobs you want to attain. So if you are a teacher, your examples mostly would be like music, let's say music theory, addition, subtraction. But then if you want to apply for a corporate job, those things don't really apply well to
Mm.
getting a corporate job. So ideally, you would want to, let's say, go for, I guess, compliance training, corporate training, sales training, all of that, or a bit more um, something catered to that. Because when um, employers see what you do, sometimes they only see the cover of your book rather than what's inside. And it's always good to make the first impression, even
Mm.
though you know you're much more than the cover.
Yes. That's something I love that you said first impression, because my understanding is that people will make a decision in 7 seconds or less. So,
Mm-hmm.
for example, in a retail store, someone hands a resume and they look at it and they glance and then they decide, does this go in the bin or do I pay a bit more attention to this? And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's the same with portfolios, that we need
Mm-hmm.
to encourage our industry to create portfolios or samples of work that someone can make a decision within 7 seconds or
Mm-hmm.
less to say, yes, I'm interested in pursuing this person. What are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, look at YouTube and Facebook videos right now. Usually you'll have to get the audience attention within the first three, if not that.
Mm.
And then they keep an ad which is like around 7 to 10 seconds, and people already like lose interest after that ad sometimes. So if that's how you feel towards social media where you're always in, all the more it would be for with like hiring managers and work, right? Though what I learned when creating my portfolio was creating, well, yeah, like a brand, having a brand for yourself. But rather than you talking about you where it becomes marketing, try to talk about your clients and their journey. So one book which was recommended to me by Dr. Robin was building a story brand. So
Yeah.
that takes your clients um, through the that takes your client as the hero of his or her journey, and then you're just the guide to help them. And then that's where your brand, or that's where it can help when you create a portfolio. So rather than saying, hey, this is what I can do, it'll be more like, hey, here's how I can help you.
I love that. Can you give an example?
Um, I guess if you look at websites, rather than saying, I do e-learning, I do instructional design, I do this, or I create videos, it will be more like, hey, I can help you with your training by creating these things for you. Are you interested? Or sorry, wait. There. Yeah, so it would be like I'm on the spot. Give me a few minutes. It's just
Okay.
someone just passed by the room. um, welcome to the human world, everyone. No, there. So it's e-learning. These are the tools rather than. So let me get my words back. Okay. So rather than it being, here are the tools I can use, and then you rate yourself. I know a lot of people do that. Like I'm 95% experience in Articulate. I'm 50% experience in Captivate. It will
Mm.
be more like talking to the hiring managers. Like, oh, do you need someone who is experienced in this here in e-learning, or do you need someone who can develop with this? I can help you create visually designed things. I can help you create interactive examples. And then here is how I can do things. Then you talk about your design process. And then, yeah, did I make sense? I feel like I've been
Yeah.
rambling along things.
No, what I'm getting from that is think about the result, the person that is
Yeah.
looking at your portfolio, for example. What is the result that's important to them?
Mm-hmm.
Tell them you can do that. Like, these are the things I can help you achieve, which you've identified
Yes.
that's what they want. And then also, here's how I
How
do
you
it.
do. Yes. I think you are really good at extracting information.
I'm
I
an
love how you
instructional
were.
designer, so
I
it's
am
my
this me
job.
now. No. So I love how you summarize all that for me.
Well, you gave me the context and the content. That's cool. So let's have a think about then. Okay, lots of things are going through my head. If we think about going back to the portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
and what would you say is the ideal, not that it doesn't have to be the one, but if you were to paint the picture of the ideal formula for what you should include, because I know you said yours is incomplete at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
but you're still landing like people that are
Mm-hmm.
interested and really impressed with what you're sharing, and you're like, oh, I
Mm-hmm.
haven't added descriptions, but it's you're going to do it in the future. So if someone
Mm-hmm.
was starting, what would be the framework that they should consider for the portfolio they put together?
Well, the first one, I guess, is to have a really good header or the banner of the very first thing which they see, which invites them to come in and explore your website first and foremost.
Mm.
Whether it's having already a call to action. say, let's work together, or I can help you create whatever.
Yep.
Just having that at the very first to entice people to go through your website is the main important thing. Because usually what I see is when you first land in the website, it's already an immediate long paragraph of who they are. But rather than that, you should invite your potential clients, invite your potential hiring managers to go through your website, and then the rest follows.
Yeah.
So I would start with like a banner or call to action or something, and then probably start with how can you help them achieve their goals. And then put examples. If this is going to be like a one page
Yep.
website, and then put the examples of what you can do. And then the last one would be if you have testimonials or customer recommendations, add it there. And then of course the final piece should be work with me or hire me or something like a contact.
Yeah.
Another call to action.
Call to
That
action.
ideally would be the description, and that ideally will be the format of your homepage. And then of course if you want to get into more detail about who you are, that can be done in a different page. If you want to get into more detail about your different projects, that can be done. But ideally the first one should be a summary of everything.
Yeah.
Because
If people don't have, sorry, you go, continue.
Sometimes hiring managers or clients don't have time to read all of it. They usually just go through it and ask the questions after. They don't go through your whole description, your whole case study, unless they're really interested in how they can help. But usually it's more of, okay, this is what you can do and how can you help me?
Yeah, I agree. And I think for people creating portfolios and stuff, it is a very overwhelming task, and it holds them back from achieving that project or that job that they're looking for. And I think that the formula that you just brought up there, the call to action, how you can help them, few samples, testimonial, call to action, is a really possible and achievable portfolio without going into the other pages, because we don't all have the skills to develop something in Wix or WordPress. Like Wix is easy, but like even that can be overwhelming, you know. So
True.
Think of it just as that one page, even if that's a PDF, that's okay, you know. Or if you create it in portfolio, or it's not portfolio, in a PowerPoint, that's okay as well. So try to use these things, because that 7 seconds or less is being achieved. And I believe that if someone knows what they are looking for in a team member, they reverse engineer your portfolio anyway. So they can see from your samples how you got there. They'll be able to work that out in their heads. They'll be able to, if you can get testimonials, they'll be able to pick that out and understand that, oh, you're a team player, or you're a good communicator, and those kind of skills that and characteristics they might be looking for in the human.
True. I also loved how you said that I loved how you said that the whole, of course, this whole 7 second things, and then the manager will be able to reverse engineer what you've done. But at the same time, also what you've done should also communicate to who you're talking to, or you should identify who you want this portfolio to reach. So right, in marketing, if you market to everyone, you market to no one. With this one, it's also the same thing. You have to be able to identify who do you want to target, who do you want to notice your portfolio. Is it going to be more of the corporate? Is it going to be startup? Is it going to be hospital, healthcare management, and all that? And then try to do it that way as well.
Yeah, that's cool. So would you, I guess there's opportunity there for, if you have one sample of work that you're like, this is my portfolio piece or screenshot. If you're going for, and say you did it for a corporate company, but then you want a job in healthcare industry, it's about swapping out the images and maybe changing the colors. Even a simple swap of an image can go from person working at the desk, like taking notes, to someone in some scrubs in a hospital scene. Because if you're using dummy text and that, like the lorem ipsum, that doesn't really make a difference. And that's just a small tweak you can do to, entice
Absolutely.
your people.
Yeah. Lorem ipsum. Someone recently commented, or someone recently posted that they found a cat ipsum
No way,
version
really?
text. Yeah. And then I later on commented, it's like, oh, my three favorites were there is a bacon ipsum. If you're a
Yeah,
meat lover, there's also a pirate ipsum and a zombie ipsum version generator. And then for a fun thing, there is like this a Filipino gay lingo ipsum. So they call it Becky ipsum. So that was just really fun.
that's cool. We're going to use that more in the templates we create now. That's awesome.
Sure.
For testimonials, how do you recommend people get some of them?
Start with your immediate circle if you can. So try to ask your workmates, try to ask your manager if you have that good relationship with them. And then of course, after you complete a project, try to ask your clients. So whether it's going to be internal clients and you just you're creating something for another team or another department, even just asking them for a comment about what it is, you can always take a screenshot or put that in your website, even if it's going to be via email. Then of course you should ask permission if you want to or if you can there.
Yeah.
But it's just, if you, as an instructional designer, you should always build relationships with, whether it's going to be your SMEs or your clients. So with that, you can always ask for how did they feel the project went, how do you feel about your services. So um I'm sure they'll be willing to give all that information if possible. Then one of my clients, when I asked for that, it was interesting because he asked, can you do a format for me? Then I will just edit and add that. So that one to me was a bit weird, but looks like people ask that because if you talk to CEOs of companies where you, or higher management, they may or may not have time to create something.
Yeah. And I think I've noticed that comes from a place of nervousness as well, on like, oh my God, what am I supposed to say? And how can I be the most helpful if I'm going to spend the time writing a testimonial? So I find a little framework is useful. And I guess the things that you want to you can give them prompts and say, like, you don't have to say, here's the testimonial I'm writing for myself, please just sign it. But it can be, how would you rate our communication, our project management, the learning solution itself, all that kind of, like, those are the parameters you want to give someone so that they don't have to think. They can go, oh yeah, you always delivered on time, you were so clear in your emails, I always knew what I was doing, the business has absolutely loved the solution that you created. And I think even throughout the project, you may get emails from clients or stakeholders where they're saying, oh my God, absolutely love this. They're testimonials as well. So it doesn't have to be a formal, like, please, can I have a testimonial? It's just nice comments that reinforce how good you are.
Yeah, and if you can even get like learners' testimonials, that will also be awesome because they'll be able to gauge the work which you've done rather than your work with a client, but then the result of your work, which is going to be very interesting as well.
That's cool. That's a great tip. You mentioned that your portfolio should present projects for the clients and stakeholders you want to work with. How do you determine, that you're going to work with, but how do you determine the clients that you want to attract? And how do you go about that?
That is something I've also been working on. So it's a continuous type of
I'm a
development
mind
thing.
reader, so
There. So I think as the very first step, if you're getting used to it, if you're still going there, it's the term is cliche, but it's always like finding your niche, right? Um, so if you're able to identify what you're passionate about, what you love, if you're able to identify even the type of person you want to work with, what position, I think you can always start from there. if you can also identify, it's like, oh, okay, I love animals, and you start doing something about for vets, for the animal society, or even Nat Geo things, for example. That I think, if you just put your work out there and you just do it, it will eventually, someone will notice that.
Yeah.
Someone will say, oh, this is a really interesting project, this looks really good, this information here is nice. um Someone will notice. Yes, it will eventually reach there, and then, once you explore the different ways, once you explore that, you can start identifying things which you really want to work for.
Mm.
And I believe it comes with time and experience usually to do that. There's no one way of doing things, rather than just experiencing and just doing.
Yeah, I agree.
Mhm.
Let people know. And there's heaps of like niche LinkedIn groups and stuff. Like if you're interested
Absolutely.
in e-learning and healthcare, there are groups for
Mm-hmm.
that. If you're
Mm-hmm.
e-learning in sports, there's groups for that. So, and
Mm-hmm.
even on Facebook. So definitely get in there and start interacting in those groups, because you start to
Mm-hmm.
learn the language, you start to understand the challenges that they're facing. So when you are talking to stakeholders and clients, they go, oh, it's like you work here already, Raiza. Like, how do you know so much about our industry? So you're more
Exactly.
enticing. Yeah.
There, even just by looking for keywords in it. So for example, even if you search for inclusivity and then you put that in the LinkedIn search bar, you will already see tons of content related to that. You'll
Yeah.
see tons of people working in that industry, and then just connecting with them, and
Yeah.
then learning what interests them, what things do they share, what type of information, and then from there you can build on something.
I agree. Um, so let's do like a little mini kind of case study, right? If a client comes to you, so you're passionate about bringing learning to life. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that you like to experiment with like that you've done the challenges and stuff. So that really tells me that the articulate challenges, it tells me that you like to experiment with how you can communicate things and make things interactive and display things differently. So if a client comes to you and they say, we need a course on X, and they have some of their ideas and they're like, oh, we think this would be great. What's your process?
um of course, it's more of understanding their goals. So the first thing, and all first and foremost was,
Gold star.
yeah, I'm learning. There is, yeah, understanding their goals and what are the things which they want to reach. So for me and one of my friends has recently been discussing about Kirkpatrick, and then lots of clients want to reach the level 4, right? Of course, you always want to have ROI, but then what is it about that? How does it, how does them reaching a certain level affect their business goal, and then how does that affect their goals in return? So even up to that level, it's just more of understanding what they want to achieve, and then later on we find on the different solutions. Because sometimes what they suggest may not be the most effective or may not be the most efficient one. And then that's where we can come to a conclusion, or they can come and start exploring different things, exploring different solutions, innovative ideas, if you want to call it innovative ideas, and then working with that. So one is always identify. Then we start designing. Then we start doing the process where we talk about the different. What I do is I try to work with them to create a outline of content. So we'll just come up with a list of um, topics which they want to touch, and then we work on the different ways to present those topics,
Mm.
whether it's going to be blended or if it's going to be in person, well, in person now if you can, or the type of interaction which is needed online, whether it's going to be scenario based or if you want it to be a case study or with workbooks or videos. So it's doing that. Oh, and of course you should, when you identify the goals, you would also identify, the audience, the type of um group which you're talking to as well. So it
Yeah,
all boils down to that.
that's cool.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so we've got client wants the course on this. You check in and go, okay, help me understand what business goal we're trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
Who is our audience? What are our
Mm-hmm.
learning objectives? And let's say you've got the storyboard, the content side of it sorted, and the client's
Mm-hmm.
happy with that. How do you bring that to life?
There. So I start, I guess, yeah, start developing the whole content. So whether it's going to be an articulate course, and I start looking for visual examples of what I can do. For example, if they discuss a process, they want to discuss a 6-step process and a topic there.
Yeah.
What I do with that is, rather than it being like a step by step type of thing, I try to look for examples in infographics. So infographics have a really lovely way of showing a process, and then I replicate that in my in my course, and add a different animation. So I'm basically reverse engineering what I see online and the different design samples, and just trying to do as much as I can to replicate the ones which I like, the ones which I find interesting in the course itself.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice. You have an interest in games. How do you try to sneak them in effectively to your
Ab-
solutions?
oh wow. Um, what I find interesting about the games is either how they have a tutorial at the start of games, for example. How do they tell you how does their product work, or what is the game mechanics? Just that, and the visual design principles on how they use things. So if you make a mistake in a game, or if you lose a life, what does the game do? How do they alert you as well? If something goes wrong, so mechanics like that is always interesting to put into your online solution or your e-learning solution. Even just by seeing the visual, like the menus, the course menus, what I always search about games is their chapter selection. So
Mm,
with how they do their chapter selection can also be how you create your lesson selection, for example.
love
Like
it. Yeah.
how do they group things together? How do they say that you've completed this? Is there like a star at the bottom? Is it faded or is it colored? Is it red because you failed that chapter, for example? So it's just more of the visual or UI UX design in games which I try to apply. And of course, the storytelling as usual, the whole context, the whole that's a different type of that's a different way of also including games. But then what people can do usually with games is just look at how they do how the game interacts with the player.
Mm. What do you
Yeah.
mean?
um there so yeah, basically the feedback of the game. So what if you make a mistake, if you die, if you do something wrong versus if you do something good. That this is for video games. If you go for board games, it's like the different pieces. It's a layout of the board game. It's the instruction manual of the board game, for example. Is it clear? How do they word things? How do they separate the different um game mechanics? I believe there's like always the different information which you have, or the different pieces which you have, and then the instructions of how to play the base game. How do you play it with more than 5 players if you want to make it something else, the additional information. And then if some board games also have like an about, where they say this is the history of the game if you're interested. And then just the layout of things, it's just really pretty. I have a collection of board games behind me. It's like a whole shelf.
What's your number one to play?
Um, right now, the most recent game I've played was Katan.
Okay.
Um,
How do you
and
play, or what's the kind of go with it?
it's I guess it's kind of like a resource management type of thing as well as luck. So you have
Mm.
different hexagons where you can put like settlements, and then you have different you roll the dice to see the what resources do you gain from those settlements, and then you try to build more, and then of course the one with the most wins.
Right.
And D&D. So I've been recently trying to get into D&D. Such a nerd.
Dungeons and Dragons, is it?
Yes.
Is that the
Yeah.
one where you're actually a person, like playing the
Yes.
game in your house? Oh yeah, I've heard about that. Cool.
There. So it's more of improv and theater of the mind and that. So I panic when it goes to me. So I try the reason why I this is the reason why I went for that, even though I panic when it's uh you know my turn to improv. It's just for me to practice, for me to be able to get my speaking skills, as you can see here. But it's just a really fun thing, and what's really cool about that game is there's no set storyline. So
Mm.
you as the creator, you as the players create it. um for example, you go so usually it's like you start at a, let's say, a cavern or a caravan or something, and then now what do you do? Do you stay there? Do you go out help people? Do you fix something? Now that is all under your control, and then um the story follows what you choose. So if you choose not to help this person, the next time you visit, that person may or may not be gone or dead, or
Oh yeah.
against you.
Oh
So
wow.
that is really fun, and I think that will also play well with, for example, learning. So it'll be really cool to have a course or something where the learner gets to decide his or her journey, his or her what
Yeah.
that thing entails. So, for example, if you click a certain button, now what information is done there,
Mm.
which information which you get there. Um, the ones which I believe it was one of your videos when you talked to Kathy more about gamification.
Mm.
So what I loved about that video was, I think you mentioned something about quizzes. I'm not sure if it was your video or that. It's like in real life, if a person makes a mistake, they usually don't see it wrong immediately, right? It's not like in the multiple choice, okay, I got this one wrong, and then I already know that I did it wrong. Usually in real life, if you make a mistake, it's somewhere down the line where you see the result of it.
Yeah.
So with that, um, that's just that way of, like, giving feedback is really interesting, or that way of showing the learner, okay, you've gone through this path, but you made the wrong mistake at this point.
Yeah.
um this is what you do, this is the result of it. So just that is really interesting and branching, and I believe that can also be done in online solutions, and it's just
Definitely.
a whole different level of learning or teaching or developing.
Yeah. Well, so I believe what you're discussing there is instant versus delayed
Yes.
feedback. So if people want to
Yeah.
learn more about that, there's a place for both in the same interaction as well. So it's not one or the other, it's
Mm-hmm.
and as well. So have a look into that. And I love, like, I'll also reinforce what you're saying around, with your Dungeons and Dragons, you're putting yourself out there to learn something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or yeah, to kind of expose yourself to things that make you nervous and that, but you want to do it
Mm-hmm.
because there's some reward for you. But in the process, you're learning. And also
Mm-hmm.
for myself, I'm doing that at the moment. So I'm learning to skateboard. And in the
Oh,
process of skateboarding, I
me
am,
too. There's my
oh,
board.
what? Oh, cool. I can see it. Mine's just here. We'll swap notes afterwards. But I find, and you'll probably relate to this, is like when I'm learning to skateboard, I'm learning about the importance of micro learning, breaking down a move, like dropping down a ramp and up the other side into micro actions. And those are like balance, foot position, but it's it's also scaffolding. So it's so interesting to put yourself into a learning position to become a better instructional designer. So if anyone is out there and they've been thinking about like, oh, I'd love to take that pottery class, or I'd love to learn this particular thing, go do it, because it does make you a better instructional designer.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. You'll be able to open your eyes to different views in the world, not just your own. And that's just really interesting. And that is something that, yeah, definitely makes you better, whether it's better in designing something, better at seeing, better at, explaining,
Yes.
or that, yeah,
And how
even.
people think they're explaining something to you,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't get the instructions right, and you're like, well, now I've just fallen on my ass. You should probably tell me this in future. So it's about being clear in your instructions. I think we learn a lot about that.
Yeah, plus just the experience of doing something new is rewarding already in itself.
Yeah.
And then you get to say, yeah, you tick this off of your bucket list. Learn skateboard by the time I'm 30, by the time I'm 50, that's also okay.
You just
It's
put
just
me in that older bracket there. The closer to 50,
no,
is that why you said it?
no, I mean, because there are others where, I mean, I don't want to limit. It's like, okay, you're learning a skateboard at 30. No, you can learn it at 50, 60, 70, and all that. It's just
Yeah.
do it. The thing which I recently learned, so with my previous company, because it's a corporate structure, whatever I do had to have approval of someone else in a
Hmm.
higher rank. So when I shifted to a startup company, all those, I didn't need to ask for approval. So it was more of a mind shift for me
Hmm.
to say, okay, so I am the owner of something, I have to do it. So I think one of my teammates noticed that, because I was always asking, is this okay? Is it fine? And all
Yep.
that. My teammate was like, listen, just do it, just post it, just create it. What's the worst that can happen? If something happens there, if you make a grammatical error, we can always edit a post, we can always do something, we can delete it and then
Yeah.
re-upload, for example. What's the worst that can happen, essentially, versus always asking, being stuck in that mindset, oh, I need to do this, this, and that before I can do
Yeah.
something. So that is, yeah, just do it, just post, and what, and just see what happens after.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm conscious we're meant to, like, our time was only booked for now. Do you have time to continue, or do you have a hard stop?
No, I have time to continue. Oh, I didn't
Okay.
notice that it's already more than
Yeah,
an
it's going
hour.
quickly. I'm smiling so much as well because you're reigniting some things that I haven't experimented with in a while. And I love,
Mhm.
like, yeah, the things that you're sharing about the games and bringing in, their little instruction booklet and how can we apply
Mhm.
that. So this is adding a lot of value. The one thing you started to bring up, but you took it down a different lane, was going back to storytelling. Talk to
Mhm.
us about storytelling and bringing that to life.
Um, Storytelling, that is something I need to work on. So I definitely need to work on my writing, my scripting. I personally, I'm more, yeah, I guess I'm creative writer, but then I haven't really developed that yet. But
Yeah.
with storytelling, um, I guess usually what people, I recently did a webinar on storytelling. Well, not recently anymore, like a month ago, about storytelling.
So long.
So
You're ancient now in
yeah,
comparison to
two,
then.
2 months ago, I guess. I don't know. Yeah. So with storytelling, people always think, okay, you need to have characters in the story, you need to have a lesson, you need to have a moral of the story. But what we talked about with storytelling is, it's not just the characters. It's not just, you don't always need to put it in a fantasy world. You can also put it in a real life scenario about a manager and a employee, for example. But it doesn't, storytelling doesn't stop there. It also translates to you posting on social media. Like, how do you tell a story when you write about a certain topic as a post? That
Yeah.
is also storytelling. Creating visual design, visual layouts where you talk about something or a carousel image in LinkedIn, that's storytelling.
Yep.
And the storytelling in online learning is also how do you, the learner journey through the very first slide or very first topic to the very end as well. Now, it can either be a more formal story where you take them through like a generic idea to a specific idea at the end,
Yep.
or it can be more informal where you try to put them in a story. Like if we go to like Kathy Moore's examples of storytelling, the whole
Yep.
workplace, the whole Afghanistan, I think war in Hajj, something with Hajj Kamal,
Yep.
that can also be another type of storytelling, but it's a huge branch where you can apply storytelling principles anywhere.
Yep. I have done that example I don't know how many times and failed every single time. It's a really good example though. I'm just
It
a poor
is.
learner. No, my motivation is not to get to the end to get it right. Would you say you have like a formula for stories? Like, even I'm just thinking now there's a beginning, middle, and end. Would you
Yeah.
encourage any other tips for how to put together a good story?
Um, I guess similar to the whole portfolio situation where you
Mm.
asked me to list that. Because that essentially is a story you're telling about yourself. So you would always have a hook, whether the hook be a quote, a question, or once upon a time type of hook.
Yeah.
But there's always a hook, and then you introduce your characters or you introduce the hero of your story, and then
Mm,
you go through the journey, and then of course the resolution at the end.
well done. That's cool. All right, I have one
Will I
last.
pass?
You're inspiring. Yep, that's all that matters. You're adding value to the world.
Oh, all right.
The last question I want to ask, because I find a lot of people struggle, I believe this is a mindset thing, but they struggle with saying, I've never done that before. How can I train in that? And you
Mm-hmm.
were sharing to me before this that your last project that you completed was a language course,
Mm-hmm.
and you were working on that, but you don't speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
How can you create a course that you're not the expert in, Raiza?
Oh, I think what I also mentioned before is being an instructional designer is you building relationships with SMEs, with their clients.
Mm.
So with that comes their support as well in creating content as much as you can. I know there are some projects where um, you don't really have a SME that is very responsive, but then um, yeah, there should always be an expert when you create something who you can refer to say, okay, is this accurate?
Mm.
Um, and then I think not knowing the language for me creating it or not knowing the content makes you even a better instructional designer because now you are putting yourself as the learner. And
Yes.
then as if you put that if you align that with your lesson objectives, you yourself can tell, oh, okay, by the end of what I've done, I was able to achieve what they wanted me to. And all the more for you, because your SMEs, your clients, they know the topic really well and they see it in their eyes as someone who knows it. So
Mm.
you being fresh eyes, being someone not an expert, you know what the learner needs. because you yourself are one.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll be able to tell, okay, this is what they wanted to explain, let's say a process, but this is how I got it. So this probably may be a better way to explain it, an easier way to explain things, if of course it is correct to what they do. So you always need to validate or fact check against that with your clients, of course. But
Yeah.
I find that as a um, perk, that you don't know things and you create it rather than it being a limitation.
Very well said. I totally agree with you. I think it is
Right.
about trusting your process and be the learner, because then you know this is useful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, well, this has been fantastically practical, and I know that it will have brought a lot of value to people. So thank you so much for being so tactical and sharing the examples. And I just encourage, even Raiza was bringing on, like, she was talking about transferable application of tips from earlier in the conversation to later, but everything that she shared here today in this episode is transferable to many things in our industry. So I'd encourage you to look for them and apply them. And I also want to recognize you, because one thing what this conversation has really brought to life, and I know that you're on social media, you are so curious and you're always learning, and you're always
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just like you're commenting things and you're sharing things, but it's not for the sake of a comment or a share. It's for the sake of thoughtful discussion and thought provoking and your curiosity. And then what I can tell from what you've shared today is that you're embedding your learning. And that's really clear today on how you're going about teaching others. So I just want to recognize you for the learning and investment you make in yourself, because I feel quite inspired and I know other people will. So I think that should be a nice reward for the effort that you put into yourself.
Aw, thank you so much. And I've yeah, definitely learned a lot. You are such an inspiration with all the things which you have done. And um a year ago when I messaged you out of nowhere, I honestly was just messaging a ton of people and just I didn't expect a reply or a comment. And then just to see that we have still been in touch, that you've still been able to give me your personalized feedback, for example, or just a comment here and there, and just the encouragement is just such a nice and inspiring thing that I was able to also share this with others. And that's what I also love about the L&D community, because it's um being a e-learning developer. Usually I always before I usually felt that it was only me there. It's only me who knows the content. It's only me doing that in the team, for example, because it's still not really new, but it's still new to other people. So with that comes only you being the center of it all. But then just knowing that there are other people there who are more experienced, there are other communities which you can get in touch with and just be inspired and continue to inspire others is just amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And in the description of this video, you've got a podcast, you do crowdcast, you're building a community in the Middle East, Asia, Europe sort of area as well. So people check out the comments so you can immerse yourself in Raiza's world and what she's doing as well in role modeling those things that she just spoke about. Thank you everyone for choosing to learn with us. We really appreciate it. This stuff I know changes lives, because people tell me they listen to this, they get the promotion, they listen to this, they do a career change, they get their ideal client, they start loving their work. So I just want to ask you guys to tag people in the comments, to let people know about this video and others that add value, so that you can change other people's lives as well, because sometimes it is just hearing that one thing and you change your life. But thank you, Raiza. You've been an amazing podcast guest, and until next time, reflect, take action, experiment. You'll be rewarded for your efforts.
What's up, awesome human? Thank you, thank you, thank you on behalf of myself and the Belvista Studios team for continuously choosing to learn with us. We really appreciate it. If the tips and the insights and the context resonate with you and you want to take your skills to the next level, or you want to make your life way easier, you will love our Creator Hub. The Creator Hub is a place for people like you and us. Basically, it's the stuff that we use internally at Belvista Studios, and then we just share it publicly with you. The Creator Hub is created by instructional designers for instructional designers, and what you'll love there at the moment is we've got a quiz, Could I Be a Better Instructional Designer, that has so much tips in the feedback if you're interested in human-centered design or just taking your skills to the next level in terms of the solutions you're creating and the problems you want to solve. But in there as well, aren't we cute? That's us. But we've got the coaching courses, freebies, give us gratitude, and also we've got some templates. And basically they're always around the lens of learning experience design, instructional design, and e-learning. So a human-centered design focus is very much what we're about at Belvista Studios. So putting your learners at the heart of a solution and creating something for their needs. So there's the human-centered design stuff, and then we've also got the business stuff. So this is the stuff they don't teach you about when you want to become a freelancer or a consultant in the instructional design world. So go check it out. The link is in the description. You can check out everything that is available for you. Thank you for choosing to learn with us. Continuously invest in your skills. You will be rewarded as an instructional designer. Share this stuff, share it with other people, because when we are better instructional designers, we create better solutions that create better humans, that create a better world. So we have a very important role, and I'm excited to be on this journey with you. Have an awesome day.